Good evening and welcome to this webinar. My name is Chris Kelsey and I'm the Communications Manager at the Banks Group. Thanks so much for your time for joining us tonight. I'm sorry we can't meet face to face, which I would much prefer. Obviously with the COVID restrictions in place, it's just not possible. Normally we'd have liked to have done, maybe one or two sessions for a project like this at different times so different people who work shifts and so on can come, but we are where we are, so we'll make the best of it. So thanks so much for joining us on this online webinar, so online seminar, if you like. How it will work is that I'm going to run through some slides on PowerPoint, which you can see, and you can see me as well, hopefully, on the webcam. I'll go through those, I'll whiz through those as quick as I can to leave as much time for questions at the end as possible. There's to ask questions, the way it's set up, it's sort of best practice for privacy and so on, is that you can ask questions on the text function. Using the text function, you can't ask them verbally. So if you click on the question mark on the control panel on the GoToWebinar control panel there, if you just click on the question mark, you can type questions in at any time, and please do. So you don't feel you have to wait till the end. You can do them throughout as a point arises in the slides. Just hit that and type in your question. Right, so without further ado, welcome. Meet the team. So on the team, you can see me sort of droning on there in the corner, but behind me there's a team of talented people in no particular order, but probably most important first is probably Sharon Brown and Rachel Dowson, the project secretaries. They do a lot of the hard work on the project. Sharon's on the call this evening. Fraser Harrison, you've got on the call on the webinar as well. You're available for questions. He's a project engineer, wealth of technical knowledge. We've also got Ellen Morton, the planner, obviously for planning specific questions, technical points on planning, law and regulations. Mark Rowcroft is the PM, who's the project manager, and you've got Lucy Sill, who's the estate manager, and on this project, the estate manager for Banks Group generally. So that's your team. Just a bit of background about the Banks Group and how we work. If you've not heard of us before, we're a County Durham headquartered based company, family owned by the Banks family. Harry Banks set us up in 1976 and still going strong. We employ, or the company employs just over 300 people at the moment, and we have what's called a development with care approach. Is at the heart of all we do. And what does that mean? Well, it means obviously we care about what we do, but in reality that means that we conduct ourselves in a responsible manner with consideration for the environment, local communities, and of course our customers, our suppliers, contractors, and of course our employees, colleagues. So we try and look after all of those. It essentially means that doing events like this in practical terms is that we sort of proactively go out and talk to and get to know the local community that lives and works around our projects. That's in a practical sense. That's what it means, and we try and take their feedback wherever possible into account when we're designing and running our projects. In short, I guess the middle kind of photo there sort of says it in short terms. It means we go above and beyond the sort of statutory minimum. We're not just here to sort of do the basic minimum. We want to go above and beyond that, and that's what development with care is all about. It also means that we, as part of our obviously working and getting to know communities where our projects are, it means obviously getting involved in our own communities where we live as well. And just during obviously the pandemic in lockdown one, there's some of the activities we got up to try and give back to our communities. There's a picture of me there at the food bank, the Bishop Auckland Food Bank Distribution Centre in Shildon, part of the Health Express in the Auckland project. And there's the middle picture there is the lads on our mining site, lads and lasses I should say, on our mining site at Shotton, spelling out NHS with the heavy plant dump trucks there. And I sort of taken a picture of an overhead picture with a drone there, and that went on our Facebook and got a lot of sort of shares and likes as their sort of tribute to people on the front line. And then there's a picture there of of a person who lives in Hartlepool, who's in a care home, who is holding up a picture of a graphic that our graphics manager Chris Madison did for her picture of Gene Pitney in a tour of Turkey there. She's a big Gene Pitney fan, so she appreciated that. So the Banks Group again, it's why do we do what we do? Well, we try and deliver things that society needs, i.e. energy, low cost, environmentally responsible produced energy, and shelter in terms of homes and buildings. We're a national advocate for sustainability, and we strive at all times throughout our work to meet our core objectives, to create and provide things that society needs, but also to incorporate sustainability in all areas of our design of our projects. Where else have we got projects? Well, you can go on the website, and this is literally a sort of screenshot from the website with various little graphics to represent our projects. The blue ones are sort of renewable projects, the green ones are property, housing, and the orange ones are mining, and the gold ones, which you can't see just behind the sign there, under the middle of the sign there from the map, is a group, the golden group colour for projects like this. The Bowesfield Flexible Energy Park. In the Stockton Borough, you may have seen in the local press or online on Facebook and so on, we've got a wind farm, Lambs Hill near Stillington. We've got just over the border into the Darlington Borough Council area, we've got another wind farm called Moor House, and then we've also got a property scheme, which is kind of that green blob there. It's actually, that's supposed to be Kirk Levington. If you zoom in on the website, you'll get a better sense of exactly where it is, and you can click on those icons on the website and get more information there. So without further ado, moving on to, so that's a bit about us and the team and the Banks Group. Specifically, this project, the Bowesfield Flexible Energy Park, we'll move on to now. There's a fairly old one actually, because there's still sort of building work. There's a fairly old, I think it was an aeroplane aerial shot before we had drones, I think, of the site. And then going on to a sort of OS map there, that gives you a sort of plan view, an overhead view on a map. There's the 66 at the top there, bounding the top of the site there. And obviously the River Tees coming through the middle, Thornaby there. And there's obviously Bowesfield in the middle. Now our site there, it's actually the site we're talking about here for the Bowesfield Flexible Energy Park is that sort of red square type shape there. So why have we chosen this site? Well, a number of reasons. The Banks Group actually own the wider Bowesfield site, developed those offices there on the side of the sort of southern western part of the site. I think originally the Teesside Development Corporation had it from about 87 to 96, and then I think we took it on from there. And it's had all sorts on the site that people may remember. Local people may remember there was a foundry on there many years ago. So it's within our sort of area of responsibility already, and our operations team already, have a responsibility to look after it. Also, the site is well screened. This small part of the Bowesfield site for the Flexible Energy Park is well screened and naturally protected by vegetation. And it's at the moment it's empty. It's an empty site essentially, this part of the site. So it's an opportunity to use that. And of course, there will be local benefits for the local community in terms of contracts for security, maintenance, health and safety, monitoring, all sorts of things that we'll need if we get planning permission and it goes ahead. So again, that's getting closer on the site. You can see the Compass Royston bus coach car park there, and we're just at this the eastern part of the site there. The river's here, just down the corner of that photograph schematic, and you can see that's the golden arrow there is the proposed access from Bowesfield Crescent. The North Gate officers depot is there, just to the north of the site, and the blue flame there is representing where the start of the gas, some of the natural gas hydrogen engines will be. So key facts, And I should say, yeah, keep the questions coming. That's brilliant. We've got a few already. That's great. Keep them coming. We'll get to those quickly. There's not many more slides to go, and then we're into the Q&A. So that's great. We were going to get chucked out at 1:45 if we go on that long. So that we'll have plenty of time for questions. That's brilliant. Thanks a lot. Keep them coming. And I should say also add at this point, these slides, these PowerPoint slides, I'll as soon as this is finished, I'll upload them to our the web pages on the Banks Group website as a PDF, so people can go on there, download that, and flick through them at their leisure. If there's anything you want, any slide you want to particularly go back on. Okay, key facts. So what are these things? Well, they have been around for a while. A lot of hospitals have them. They are in the UK as sort of backup generators, and they basically are engines that run various fuels. We're proposing gas and hydrogen that step in when the grid demand is high and the grid needs more energy to balance demand, supply and demand, essentially. And that's sometimes called peaking plants, to sort of take the peak demand, if you like. Currently, the plan is to have enough engines on this site to create 8 megawatts of energy. I think it's 2.5 per engine. And the engines will be future-proof to I mean, I think initially they'll run on natural gas, but when hydrogen, and particularly green hydrogen, comes on stream at scale, they will be future-proof to be able to run on that, which would be great. Please comment like that. So yeah, to just last few slides now to the questions. Keep the questions coming. Benefit in the community. We've identified the economic benefits as the following there, as on screen. Obviously, these smaller plants are cheaper to build and run than the large old style embedded thermal fired power stations that coal, gas, oil in some cases, and indeed nuclear. So they're more agile, they're more, they can kick in and out quicker, and as they're cheaper, they keep the keep the cost of the consumer, whether that be industrial or domestic, as low as possible. And they will bring obviously employment to the area, and also it will help the case for Teesside in terms of its hydrogen network business case. If there's a demand for hydrogen here, and I know obviously the ICI Wilton Road's got big experimental plans for CCS, carbon capture and storage as well, which would be brilliant, using the old petrochemical oil and gas infrastructure. Or the social benefits or the benefits of the site, these kind of overlap, but get the idea. I mean, it will help us to get to net zero and have a positive impact on fuel poverty by keeping bills low, and they help balance the grid essentially by generating economically, environmentally and socially acceptable energy, if you like. And they've got an increasingly valuable part as the big old thermal power stations come off the grid, come offline. There's a need, and more intermittent renewable sources come onto the grid, which was happening for the last 10, 15, 20 years in some cases. There is a need for more balancing devices on the grid, if you like, which is what this proposal is essentially is. Environmental benefits. Yeah, so as we touched on, it helps to net zero. They only step in when needed, and then so they'll help more renewable generation come on. And at the end of the day, I think the grid does require them. The way the intermittencies becoming more intermittent suppliers coming more onto the grid. So not nearly finished. So what happens next? Well, there we are. We're having this community consultation, Banks Group community consultation there in November. And then we're hoping we'll take questions and feedback. We've already had some emails come in through our email address and the general feedback email address on the Banks Group website. We'll gather all the questions and all the points, people writing in and phoning in as well, and feed that into a planning application, change things where we can and where necessary. And then we're hoping to submit a planning application before Christmas in the next few working weeks, essentially, hopefully all being well. And then there'll be more consultations after Christmas, run by the council, and we may do others ourselves as well. And then again, all being well, COVID permitting, etc., the Stockton Borough Council Planning Committee may look to determine this application in the spring, hopefully next year, so spring 2021. And now we'll come to the questions. So it's over to, I'll bring in members of the team with their expertise, depending on the question, but we'll go see what the questions have been asked. Okay. So we've had a question here for a gentleman that emailed in earlier as well, actually. When do we envisage phase, when do we envisage starting? I mean, I guess, when do we want to commence starting? When do we think, that's a good question, in terms of the timing of the project. Say if we did get planning permission in the spring of next year, Mark Rowcroft, the project manager, would you like to take, just in terms of sort of broad outline timings, when do we think, if we get planning permission in the spring, when do we think we might start building and things will come on stream?
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, I mean, phase 2, presume that's starting the procurement process to enter into operations. If we get our planning consent out after Christmas, we'll spend the time kind of through the spring up until kind of March, going out to tender and lining up orders for engines and gas connections. And then we're kind of into the hands of the distribution network operator, Northern Power Grid, but also the engine provider. So subject to their lead times, which are going to be somewhere between 7 months to 8 months to deliver both the engines and the connections, we hope to have the asset operational by October 2021.
Right, okay, so yeah, this time next year, all being well. Yeah, okay, excellent. Thanks very much. Another good question here from a webinar attendee tonight, asking, will it be a storage facility? Fraser is the engineer. I think this person's got some expertise in this area. Is interested in the hydrogen.
Yeah.
Site. Did you want to take that one?
Yeah, no problem at all, Chris. No, I mean, initially the site will generate through getting a kind of the gas generator technology. But once that kind of process, you know, through time, we move towards more kind of hydrogen-based technology. We do have the capability to kind of be flexible and generate that kind of energy in the future. But at the moment, it's a gas peaking plant.
Right, got it, understood. And another good question here. Someone's asking on the webinar tonight, what will the sort of, how noisy will it be? Will it be noisy? I guess obviously, I mean, obviously it is an industrial estate, and obviously there is the Compass Royston coach depot there, and Northgate, which obviously I think is the biggest rental company, vehicle rental company in the country, PLC actually, big depot there. But will our plant, our little bit of the estate, be noisy? Ellen, did you want to, as a planner, I mean, you've been involved in all the various surveys we've done around the site so far. Would you want to take that one in terms of the noise issue?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. So we have had a noise impact assessment or acoustic survey done as part of our site survey. Essentially, that involved going onto the site and measuring background noise levels, and then predicting the noise levels that will arise as a result of the proposed development at the noise sensitive receptors. And the noise impact assessment we had done determined that the noise produced by the engines and the battery facility would not be greater than the typical daytime and nighttime background levels that are already at the site. So basically there should be a negligible impact upon noise in the local area.
So even when, I guess, even when it's running, I mean, obviously, I guess it's important to say that they're not running all the time. By their nature, they are peaker plants. They only switch on when there's a peak demand, as it were. So, but I guess, yeah, I guess they're asking, will it be noisy when it's switched on? I suppose, yeah. So, yeah, you've answered that. Yes, good. Yeah, okay. That's useful. Thanks so much. Another question here on the hydrogen sort of future proofing, which I know I'm excited about, in the green hydrogen and so on. And I think the industry as a whole is excited about hydrogen. It's seen as very much a future, isn't it? Mark Rowcroft is the PM. Do you want to talk a bit about that, and possibly how the site might switch to hydrogen when hydrogen, hopefully green hydrogen, comes available on scale and at an economic sort of rate, and the safety aspects around that?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. So hydrogen is part of a bigger picture and a bigger drive that's been explored as part of the decarbonisation of the UK power network. It's not a new thing. I mean, hydrogen's been produced on Teesside for decades, but it's always been quite a dirty method of production. And what at the moment is the creation of either blue or green hydrogen. So blue hydrogen, where it's a consequence of reformation using CCS, so getting rid of the emissions that's created in its production. But more interesting is green hydrogen. So this is where you use excess renewable power from offshore wind and onshore wind and solar when it's not needed to run electrolyzers to create green, in the truest sense, hydrogen. And what the UK government's really interested in is how do we get that into the wider gas network? So the stuff that comes out of our own meters, currently it's just pure natural gas, methane. How do they decarbonise that by introducing hydrogen? And the easiest way to do that is to put a 20% blend into the normal gas network. We can do that right now. All of our engines and our gas cookers and our boilers will all run on that 20% blend pretty much out of the box, with a few exceptions. But ultimately, they want to move that to 100% hydrogen, which is a bit more of an issue because a lot of our equipment is local pipe work, things that aren't really compatible. So to get to the question, how will it get to the site if it's used? Come through the normal gas connection that would be currently used for the natural gas line. There wouldn't be any on-site storage of hydrogen. It would be perfectly safe, and as I say, it would have no real impact on the wider area. And engines that we're looking at can run on that 20% blend purely as they come from the factory. If in the future we can make the case to run 100% hydrogen, which would take an awful lot of investment on a national scale from UK government and from the various network operators, then we'll be part of a bigger piece of work that affects everyone's homes, where we're swapping out our infrastructure to do that. Or we'd see tandem networks going in, so separate pipe works going to industrial areas where this might be more applicable. But in answer to the question, it would come via pipes, either the existing pipes that are currently used for natural gas, or via new pipes that would be dedicated solely to hydrogen.
Well, thanks, Mark. Yeah, it's really interesting and exciting future of that. I know this and the CCS stuff at Wilton Road as well. They're trying to use existing pipes, oil and gas pipes, to maybe pump some carbon under the sea as well. So there's a lot of interesting stuff happening around Teesside, and we're part of the the cutting edge of energy generation, which, to be fair, the region's always been, to be fair, going way back. A question here from Dave on the webinar tonight about how this is a stepping stone to net zero. Mark, sorry to maybe come back to you again, or maybe Fraser, you want to chip in as well. But in terms of, do you want to talk a bit about how this is a kind of a useful stepping stone to net zero as a sort of interim tech to get us to net zero?
Yeah, I can take that, Chris.
Thanks, Mark.
It's important to note that this is not a net zero development. It is carbon that currently uses natural gas. There's no getting away from that, and we aren't trying to hide it either. This is a visionary technology. So in an ideal world, we jump straight from big thermal plants to battery storage and loads of renewable generation, and we jump straight to our 2050 targets. The reality of that is that wind farms can take 10 years to deliver, offshore wind, and a long time to bring on stream. We'd need something like 60 gigawatts of battery storage to do what we're trying to do, and at the minute we've got a tiny fraction of that And moreover, we haven't got the grid services set up to deliver on the battery projects that we want to do. So this is an intermediary step on the path to net zero, where we make the case for taking large thermal plants off the network, like the coal plants and things like that, and the large CCGTs.
Yeah.
And we replace them with smaller ones as a stepping stone towards this this future that we're trying to create. But the very fact that these assets are small, they're distributed around the network, the design when they actually have to almost as an insurance policy, means that it allows more and more wind and solar generation to enter the system without having to worry about the intermittency of those generation technologies. So these projects only have a finite life in their current form, perhaps 10 years. And if we get the investment and the infrastructure backing from central government that we need, then we'll do that even faster. But this is just to get us toward net zero. And it's important to make that delineation. It's very necessary, but it's not the end product. It's a step on the path. It's a step on the path towards it.
Thanks, Mark. That's really helpful. Yeah, CCGT, they use a bit of energy jargon. That's some of you may know that it stands for combined cycle gas turbine, basically gas-fired power station. Yeah, so absolutely. And again, another really interesting question again tonight. A comment on while we're on this webinar. I've not thought about this. It's quite interesting, Mark. It might be you again, I'm afraid. Someone's asking here about the calorific value, the sort of heat output of green hydrogen versus natural gas in terms of I suppose you get into volumes and how much you need and all those sort of interesting questions. But did you want to just say something about that?
I'm absolutely sure that the questioner probably knows more about this than I do, but ultimately the engines that we're looking at can run on a 20% blend with a negligible derating. So they make a few adjustments to it. There's capacity within the stated output to accept that 20% hydrogen blend without any change. If we move to a 100% hydrogen blend, then the question is statement kind of comes into effect, at which point the engine is derated to 60% of its rate. So it is certainly an important consideration to note that the hydrogen changeover will lead to a reduction of the site's peak output. But in all honesty, at the same time as that's happening and hydrogen comes onto the system, then the site will probably be more focused towards battery storage at that point anyway. I think it'll become a bit more of a moot point, because the whole point of having these assets on the network is that they shouldn't run very often, and in time run less and less. What re-rating is that we'll just have to change the way in which we trade the site in the future. But it's a good question.
Yeah, really, really interesting. Couple more questions. Inevitably people are interested in about working with us and stuff, which is brilliant. There's a person on from a company called Swagelock. We might take that one offline, but interested in maybe working with us in terms of procurement and stuff. Do you want to just say, Mark, if there's people on this webinar, maybe Mark and Fraser, if people on this webinar that are interested in people getting involved, and obviously we, as part of that, we want to make sure that the benefits go to local companies, local people as much as humanly possible. Do you just want to talk maybe a bit about our procurement?
Yeah, that's a key point. We're really keen that local businesses benefit out of this project as much as they possibly can. On our renewables project, we have a great initiative called Connect to Renewables, where we try to put as much of the project capex into the local areas as possibly can, and we'll aim to reflect that here. What we are doing currently is collating a list of interested parties with their various disciplines and various services that they can offer, and we'll, if we can capture those details, if anybody can send them through to our Bowesfield email address, then we'll keep a record of those and use that as part of our project procurement on this and other related sites as well that we have in the local area.
Brilliant, thanks, Mark. If the person from Swagelock wants to just drop us an email or with your contact details, obviously, but I won't say it over the air now, but GDPR protection. But if you drop us a line, we can be in touch and put you in touch with our procurement department, as Mark was outlining there. That'd be brilliant. Another question, we've probably got time for another couple more. Maybe another one for you, Ellen. Someone asking about emissions, but in particular CO2, so carbon dioxide, and then CO, carbon monoxide, and then nitrous oxide. And will the project require a special permit, even though it's on an industrial estate next to the bus depot and the Northgate depot? Ellen, is that one for you, do you think, or Fraser as well? Sorry to drop that onto you a little bit, but it's a good question in terms of.
I can just talk to the emissions part, Chris, if you want.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, Mark. Yeah, Mark. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, perhaps if we can probably revert back on the environmental permit part.
Yeah, sure.
It's definitely a key consideration as part of our asset procurement, what these plants actually emit. Yes. The CO2 value for burning natural gas is a bit of a given, with a little bit of kind of variation for the technical specification of the plant. Yeah. Also, the nitrogen dioxide question is a really good one as well. Yeah. It factors into our tender, specifically around what catalysts and kind of filtering equipment is included in the asset to limit the emissions as far as we possibly can. It's difficult to talk further on the actual individual figures until we've run that tender process. At the minute, all we're looking at is the nameplate nitrogen oxide numbers and the standard CO2 numbers. But as I say, as we go through, we'll refine that position further and ensure that it's as clean as it possibly can be. And that's usually by, as I say, specifying particular catalysts within the plant.
Okay, great. And let's make this. So the final question that did come in by email, actually. I think the gentleman tried to join tonight, but I'm not sure he could make it in the end. But he did email in a question, and I did promise on an email exchange to raise it. So he's worried. I mean, it's similar to an earlier question, maybe Ellen, maybe one for you. He's just worried that obviously it's next to the river and it's next to, it's next to the nature reserve, next to the river, in between the offices and stuff. Although it's obviously on the industrial estate, but just in terms of the surveys that we've done in terms of noise and emissions, if you could just maybe talk over that, talk through that again, just so we do cover that, which I did promise them we would. I know we've sort of touched on it before, but is that all right?
Yeah,
maybe
sure.
Fraser, what we've done in terms of just getting to this point really, and what we're going to, before we submit planning.
Yeah, so I think, as you touched on before, Chris, the site was chosen because it's pretty industrial to begin with. It's brownfield land next to a bus depot and a van hire depot, so lots of sort of light industrial uses surrounding the site. We've done a whole suite of assessments for the purposes of the site design and for submitting the planning application, including noise and air quality, just to make absolutely sure that there won't be any negative impacts on those things. In terms of ecology specifically, again, an ecological walkover survey was completed, and it found that because of the industrial nature of the site and its location, the site isn't particularly ecologically sensitive, and there are limited habitats. And because of this, the site isn't part of an ecological network, and the site was found to have limited potential for nesting birds. So we don't think that the site or the operation of the site will have a negative impact on the bird sanctuary.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Ellen. Thanks. I promised to raise it, so we have them. And I should say at this point, as well as the slides, I'll upload the slides when we finish in a few minutes to the website. There's also going to be, sorry, I should have said on the team as well. There's an excellent gentleman, Will Broadbent from Inspired, our digital agency, helping us, and he and I will liaise in the next few days and get a video of this whole webinar, so you can hear and see me again if you really want to. and the slides and listen to the Q&A back if you want to. That'll be on the website as a download as well. So I'll move on there. Some really good questions there. Thanks so much for those. Really excellent. Made me think, and really interesting. Thanks so much. Thanks for your time. So what? Just to sort of wrap up then. I mean, obviously, you know, you can, if things occur to you in the middle of the night in the next few days or whatever, obviously feel free to email us anytime. You can call us. That's the switchboard number, and ask for me. You get put through. Obviously, I'm working from home, but it'll come through to my mobile. Obviously, that's the full address of the web pages on the Bank Street website. There, you can go on there. Obviously, you can follow the group on social media. Obviously, it does cover lots of other projects in Scotland and all sorts, but and different bits of the business. But there will be stuff on there about this specific project and projects in Stockton and Teesside generally. So if you're on Twitter or Facebook or indeed LinkedIn or indeed YouTube, you can follow us on there. Obviously, you can always write to us. I have had a couple of letters. It's great to get a letter. And wrote back a letter as well, which was nice. Not done that for a while. So they're the ways you can contact us. And that really concludes the evening. We're ahead of time, which is great. So thanks so much for your attention and time. I know it's a bit weird doing these things, and it's weird for me as well. I'd rather talk to you as a normal human being, but hopefully soon, when the vaccine's rolled out next year, we will be able to meet in person, and that'll be great. But thanks again for your time, and stay safe and keep smiling during this extraordinary time.